Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and with me tonight are my co-hosts, Joe and Jason, and joining me as a special guest, my younger brother, Alex. How are you guys doing tonight? Go ahead, Joe.
Not doing too bad. How about you, Andrew?
Work was hectic because it's healthcare, but I'm otherwise not doing too bad. How about you, Jason?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Since I missed the AL East show and I don't have any NL Central gear, I'm retroactively going AL East tonight. Mainly Orioles, have the Orioles Cal Ripken Cooperstown jersey, and their AAA affiliate Norfolk Tides, their minor league cap, so which has since been updated since I got this, but it's like a seahorse now. But yeah, doing good.
Hey, every team's got to remake their logo every now and then. I mean, Tampa Bay's done it I don't know how many times. And let's face it, most minor league teams have 3, 4, 5 different logos per season for all the special nights they do. So, you know. Alex, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. I mean, I was researching to make sure I knew what I was talking about for this, and being a Cubs fan, that made me a little sad for the upcoming season, but I can't complain too much.
Yeah. I mean, it could be worse. They could be in a far worse position than they're in right now.
Not with our owners.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Although, that said, at least you're not dealing with the ownership represented by the uniform that Jason is wearing tonight.
Very true.
All right.
Better than the Angelos family, let's be honest.
Most things are better than the Angelos family. There's a couple that I think who was the old owner of the Marlins before he sold out to Jeter and his group? Jeff Lurie. I would put him worse than the Angelos family because he literally bilked like 60-70% of that stadium cost from the city of Miami through taxes instead of paying for it himself. So I'm going to put him worse.
Did he win a World Series?
No, his players won a World Series. He did nothing to win that World Series because he sold them all off immediately.
Yeah.
All right, Alex, what are you drinking tonight?
So I am not going to lie. I had a double IPA Southern Tier earlier, but I finished it, so now I'm on to some scotch.
Good choice. Good choice. What do you got, Jason?
Sorry, couldn't unmute there. Tonight, I'm going with the second one of the 4-pack that I introduced a few weeks ago, the Dioecious, which is a hoppy sour from Levity Brewing Company, which is brewed right out in Indiana, Pennsylvania, which is out near Pittsburgh. And it's actually the place where I went to college. So supporting the old hometown, college town area.
All right. What about you, Joe?
I'm rocking the ice cold Budweiser since we're going to talk about the Cubs and Harry Carey. And of course, we're going to talk about the Cardinals and how much they suck. So,
and basically tastes like the product in the can, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And tonight for me from Duvall Brewing Company, I've got the Sour Me Strawberry French Toast. And yeah, it's got a freaking kick to it too. I like it. Jason, you like sours. Have you had that one yet? Not yet? All right. Try it sometime. It's pretty damn good.
Yeah, their Sour Me Tangelo is really good.
Yeah. I think I've done at least one of their other beers in the podcast before. I can't remember which one, but yeah, they're very, very good beers. All right. So let's start with the most disappointing news of all and get it the hell out of the way for the rest of the podcast. So MLB and MLBPA continue to drag their feet back and forth. The last proposal from MLBPA from last week, February 1st, they decreased the bonus pool request for the pre-arbitration players from $105 million to $100 million. They reduced the number of players who would be awarded an additional year of service time, aka the quicker way to free agency, via award voting and performance. So initially, the ones that would be getting that quicker path would be top 5 rookie of the year voting, top 3 reliever of the year voting, or if you make first or second team all MLB. along with infielders who make top 7 and WAR in their position, and outfielders, starting pitchers, and relief pitchers who make top 20 and WAR. Initially, they had asked for top 10 and top 30, respectively. The union said that they would be open to the idea of rewarding teams that don't manipulate top prospect service time with a draft pick. So, Cubby fans, we're looking at you guys and Chris Bryant. Let's see. They did not move off their CBT threshold number. They're still saying 245. They're still pushing for a league minimum of $775,000 a year. They did withdraw the big change, trying to change the 6-year free agent, which that's not really a surprise. There was no way in God's green earth they were going to get that anyway. And they also amended the plan to reduce the revenue transfer from the large to small market teams, requesting $30 million less instead of the $100 million it initially requested. And then, as they're waiting for MLB to respond and, send an offer back, MLB says, no, I think we want to bring in a federal mediator. And this is something that pretty much every sports league has tried from time immemorial when there's a deadlock in these CBA negotiations. The NFL has tried it unsuccessfully. The NHL tried it successfully. NBA was unsuccessful. MLB back in 94 was unsuccessful. In 80, Jason, I think it's 82. Am I remembering the year right? I think it's early 80s. The arbitration was successful there. Now, they are not able to force MLBPA to use an arbitrator. This has to be agreed on, and the Players Association absolutely said no. From Max Scherzer, who is a member of the union executive subcommittee, he said, quote, "We don't need mediation because what we are offering MLB is fair for both sides. We want a system where threshold and penalties don't function as caps, allows younger players to realize more of their market value, makes service time manipulation a thing of the past, and then eliminate tanking as a winning strategy." And then the reliever with the best name in baseball, Andrew Miller, also said, "We don't think it speeds up the process at all. History tells us in our sport it hasn't been favorable to reaching a deal. Our position is that it's quite the opposite from negotiating and being ready to negotiate." Frankly, I agree with both of them. And the statement MLBPA released was, quote, 2 months after implementing their lockout and just 2 days after committing to players that a counter proposal would be made, the owners refused to make a counter and instead requested mediation. After consultation with our executive board and taking into account a variety of factors, we have declined this request. Where are we going from here? Jason, why don't you go ahead first on this one, man?
Where we're going from here? Nowhere. We're definitely going to be cutting into spring training time here. I mean, pitchers and catchers are supposed to report next week. What I'm getting out of this the most here is it's more on the MLB and owners side of things here than it is on the players. We need to remember that it's not a strike. The players are not on strike. They are locked out. MLB could just go with the older rules, older bylaws, and let them come in. But no, MLB locked them out. So this is purely on MLB right now.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly on ownership and the league in general. And I think we've talked about this a ton. You can't just crap away all the goodwill you've worked for in the last few years, and that's what they've done. Expecting the players to just cave. I mean, bottom line is we know eventually the players are going to cave and we're going to have baseball. It's going to probably be May, June at this point. I mean, with all the stuff that has to happen once the deal is actually done. So, we're going to have a shortened season again. I think that's pretty clear at this point. I think, league and ownership has put themselves in a corner to look pretty much stupid at this point because you can't blame this one on the players at all. At least, the initial lockout. I think the players have tried to be reasonable in their proposals, and the league is kind of holding their ground a little bit on some things that they certainly shouldn't. I think we could easily agree, I think, the players and the owners, that the service time manipulation is a bunch of garbage. Granted, we benefited from that as Cub fans, but, we would all agree that that was a dumb thing to do. There's no reason that, KB needed 2 extra weeks of seasoning before he was ready for the big leagues. That guy was ready for the big leagues before he started in the minors. I mean, let's be serious here. But this is 100% on the owners, and all of the goodwill and stuff we've talked about for the last year with the Field of Dreams game and everything else that they've done is going away. Guys like us who are diehards are going to stick around, but your casual fans going to say, rich guys arguing about money, forget it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Alex, what do you think, bud?
Well, I think what you just said there is so apt. The people who are true fans, deep fans, are going to stick around because you're fans of baseball. You're not fans of the owner. The casual fans, they know the players. They know the player names. They don't know the owners' names. The owners aren't doing what's in best interest of their teams. They're doing what's in best interest of the owners and the ownership group. And they have made billions upon billions of dollars over the past decade as baseball has grown in value, and they've just been unwilling to share it. Honestly, it's just really selfish, and I truly believe that.
Yeah, selfish is absolutely the right word here. Jason, you nailed it on the head. This is an owner-initiated lockout. This is not a player's strike. And yet, in the PR war between the PA and the MLB owners, the owners are trying to make this seem like it was the players who initiated all of this. Here's the thing. They could lift the lockout immediately, and we could get things rolling while they hammer out the last part of the deal and just use the old rules from the previous CBA. I mean, at this point, honestly, why the hell not do that? At this point, we are seriously risking the start of the opening day. We're not at the point where opening day is going to have to move, but we're almost at the point where we're going to have to push spring training back. I mean, it was scheduled to start next Monday for pitchers and catchers. That's not going to happen now. You think about it, we're going to need at least a week or two to get the massive glut of free agents that are still out there signed. And then they need to get their physicals done. You need to get visas taken care of for foreign players. You need to get housing set up for spring training. And there's only so much of that you can do until you know how many players you're going to have to be housing for spring training, until you know who you're going to be signing, until you know all the paperwork you have to get through to get those players in. You're going to have to get COVID testing done for the players entering the country from foreign countries. You're going to have to get updated vaccine records for the players who weren't vaccinated, and the ones that were, you need to get the booster records because everybody and everything is requiring it in so many jurisdictions now. Look at the NBA, the issues the Nets have had with Kyrie Irving, who refuses to get vaccinated and because of local ordinances is not allowed to play home games in the Barclays Center. So, there's a whole lot of paperwork that they can't get started on and a whole lot of moving that they can't do until we know what's going on. And frankly, this is dragged out far enough. Joe and I have both said repeatedly, lock them in a room, throw away the key. And I've been more sadistic and said there are no bathroom breaks until a deal is done. And honestly, at this point, what else can we do? They're barely moving. The MLB's proposal for the CBT was a $4 million raise to $215 million, because we all know in Major League Baseball, $4 million is really going to give you that push to get to the next level. Utter garbage. Frankly, I'm disgusted with the owners. And I mean, to be fair, me and Alex, our parents are teachers. We're always going to be pro-union because of that. But in this case, when you really look at the economics behind it, the owners are screwing the players as hard as they can. And the sad thing is there are people that are taking this hook, line, and sinker. Ugh.
Yeah, and that's just it. It's the owners are showing that they don't care about the sport. They don't care about their teams. They don't care about their players. They just want that higher cash flow. And the players, they love this game. They want to play this game, and they're just not allowed to. I love that some of the players have gone and taken their like Twitter avatars and put up the blank player picture that MLB decided to do across the website. So yeah, I'm completely on the player side here. I mean, sure, there should be some concessions, I think, from the player side, but a majority of these issues are owner based.
And one other person to keep an eye on in all of this, I think Rob Manfred is being a lot more instrumental in supporting the owners in this than any commissioner should be.
Yeah, absolutely. The commissioner is supposed to be supportive of this game itself, and by taking the side of the owners, he's showing that he doesn't. He would rather have the money than have a season and have the game played.
Now, keep in mind, though, too, who employs Rob Manfred? It's not the MLBPA. It is the MLB owners. And it is – here's the thing that's always driven me nuts in all of the major sports leagues when you have these negotiations over the CBA. The commissioner needs to step out because the commissioner cannot be a fair and impartial person in these talks because he is directly employed by the owners. And that is the case in MLB, NFL, NHL, NBA, probably MLS too, although I'm going to be honest, I don't know enough about the owner power structure of the MLS to say that for certain. Yeah, this is frustrating. It's ridiculous. I just want to see some damn baseball, and I want to see some current articles about baseball. I mean, I love these rehashed articles on MLB because I like seeing the old stories, when they brought up some of Greg Maddox's wizardry with the glove as well as with his arm, or looking back at the postseason runs of all the teams in the 90s and 2000s. I love looking back at all of that stuff, but I want to see some current baseball stuff again. We're past the point in the winter season where we should be seeing old stuff. It's time to see the new stuff and getting ready for spring training. All right. Do you guys have anything else?
Get it done, damn it.
Amen. Amen to that. All right, guys. Before we move on to the ESPN's Top 100, which I thought was pretty awesome, although I definitely did not agree with all of it because I never agree with everything. Two diversity hires I wanted to take note of. I might have mentioned the first one. I can't remember. The Pirates had hired Caitlin Callahan as development coach. She's the first female coach in the history of the franchise. And then in our local Atlantic League, the Lexington Legends, they've hired Lindsay Gardner as a hitting development coordinator, and she is the first female coach hired in Atlantic League history. So bravo for both of those ladies for breaking that barrier, so to speak, a barrier that still should not be up. But hey, it's progress, and I would like to see more of it in the Atlantic League. And considering the vast amount of softball talent in Lancaster County, hopefully we can see some of the local girls eventually get some of those jobs too. All right, so now let's jump ahead to the ESPN Top 100 Players of All Time. There were a total of 7 active players who made the list. You had Bryce Harper at 94, Justin Verlander at 72, Max Scherzer at 65, Miguel Cabrera at 59, Clayton Kershaw at 52, Albert Pujols at 30, and Mike Trout at 15. And then I'm obviously not going to read the entire top 100. I sent you guys the file, but I myself was lazy and forgot to print it out at work today. So just a couple notable guys. Babe Ruth was number 1. Willie Mays was 2. Hank Aaron was 3. Ty Cobb was 4. And Ted Williams was 5. The highest pitcher was Walter Johnson at 9. Pedro Martinez, 11. Greg Maddux, 14. Roger Clemens, 17. Alex Rodriguez was at 26. Derek Jeter at 28. I believe the highest of the primarily Negro League players would have been Satchel Paige at 41. Jackie Robinson came in at 38. Warren Spahn was at 47. Ozzie Smith was at the very nice 69 spot. Shepard came in at 78. Roy Halladay came in at 92. Jason Smoltz came in at 93. So, guys, generally looking at the list, what did you think of it? first of all, let's start with the premise that it is impossible to come up with a fair list that's going to represent all of the eras. I thought in particular the Negro Leagues were very, very badly underrepresented as a whole. I'm not really surprised by that, though, because we don't have a ton of statistical data on them either. Joe, what were your thoughts? Who was too high, who was too low, who was snubbed?
I was, I guess, not too surprised, I guess, that Pedro was above Greg Maddux in that list. I really thought, Mike Trout is 15 now. I don't know if that's going to bear out once his career is done based on all the injuries he's had to deal with and how that's kind of hurt him quite a bit, I think. I know we've touched on that quite a bit. How the hell A-Rod is 26? I have no freaking clue. It's ridiculous. I think I know we talked. I saw this on Twitter. It was a Draft Neck Mark. He's with the Mets Up podcast. It was like ESPN has succeeded in rebuilding his image because there's no other way he would be this high on the list. I thought maybe that Cal Ripken might have been a little higher than where he was at. He was that close to Ozzie, and Ozzie wasn't as strong of a bat as Cal was. So I don't know. I mean, you could, like you said, you're never going to be 100% happy with this, I don't think. But I'd be interested to see if in 5-10 years when Trout's done, if he's still that high.
All right, go ahead, Jason. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't like to try to put a whole lot into lists like this, but I wasn't really a fan of it. Looking from like 100 on down, I agree that I thought Cal Ripken Jr. would be a little higher. Same with Ozzie Smith. Jim Thome at 98, I thought that was a little low. On personal note, I loved seeing Duke Snider in there. He's at 95. Brooklyn Dodger, LA Dodger, Hall of Famer. That is my dad's favorite player of all time. So I love seeing him on the list. No issue with Harper at 94. Same with like Steve Carlton, Mike Schmidt, all the other Phils players that are on there. I don't think I saw Robin Roberts on there. I might have had him potentially cracking the top 100, but maybe not quite. One that was a big disappointment to me was, two. Chipper Jones being at 78 is way too low, I think. He should be higher ranked. And aside from A-Rod and Jeter, where they were, how is Ken Griffey Jr. only 13th on this list? He should at least be in the top 10. And Mike Trout at 15 is way too high, way too low. He should be worse than 15th. He had a couple great seasons, but he's not the 15th best player all time right now. The injuries have completely hurt him. The top 5, I don't have a big issue with that. It's hard to go especially with the top 3, Babe, Willie, and Hank. I potentially would have Ted Williams fighting for that top 3 spot. I would maybe flip Ted and Ty Cobb. But yeah, overall, it's okay. I'm not a big fan of it, but yeah.
It's an impossible list to compile. Let's be realistic. Alex, what do you think?
I think about these lists a lot. I love them and I hate them. Take basketball. Is Michael Jordan the best at any single statistic? Other than winning, maybe not. Steph Curry's the best shooter of all time. Michael Jordan's a better player than Steph Curry is. So there's such a subjective equation that we all take with all of these things. And, I'm partial to Mike Trout. I'm probably biased for Mike Trout. I still believe in him that he's going to live up to the 15, but he hasn't yet. But I also don't know that Mike Trout or even Bryce Harper should be on this list. Unless what they've done on the field up to this point deserves that, I don't think there should be any kind of potential included in these lists. And maybe Mike Trout is good enough to be included low on the list, but let's be honest. I mean, the dude's had maybe 5 or 6 years that warrant play on this list at most. So I don't know. I think, though, a couple of the things that were the biggest takeaways for me, Mariano Rivera, relatively speaking to his teammates, A-Rod and Jeter, I think Rivera should be above the two of them. Relative to his position, Mariano's the greatest closer of all time. Derek Jeter's not even close to the greatest shortstop of all time. He's great, not knocking him, great leader, but Mariano is better. And so I think when you start to look at the list of players relative to each other, you start to lose some of its efficacy a little bit. Same thing with Cal Ripken and David Ortiz. They're within a few spots of each other, but I think Cal Ripken, when he was a player and what he meant to his teams, I think he was more important on the field and off it than Ortiz was. So it's what are you saying is most important is really what determines how people are ordered on these lists.
Yeah, and Alex, with Jeter, I think it goes back to the point that you were talking about with Jordan. Jeter may not have had the best stats, but he won a lot. So that's probably why he gets that high ranking.
Yeah, but I would counter that by saying in baseball, the individual is not nearly as important as an individual is in basketball. Because in basketball, one player can literally take over a game and win it. You can't do that with baseball. It doesn't work that way, other than maybe a pitcher catching absolute fire and throwing a perfect game. So the list isn't terrible. It's not great. Jason, I actually had Roberts. I would have had Roberts on instead of Harper. I think by the end of his career, Harper could absolutely crack the top 100. I just don't know that he's there yet at this point in his career. Looking at some of the players who are on there and their accomplishments, David Ortiz is way too far up this list. He should be down near the bottom. He's a DH. Great. He got a first ballot Hall of Fame. He's a freaking DH. All he did was hit. He should not be jumping ahead of players who made insane contributions with their gloves. I do have the list over here. If I remember right, did Andre Jones make the list? I feel like he got snubbed off, and I thought he would have made the bottom end of it. I actually don't remember if I saw Tom Glavine on there either, which is insane because he's a 300-win left-handed pitcher, which there really weren't a whole lot of those. The guys I don't really know necessarily who I would take off though to put those guys on there. I don't know. It's tough. I don't know if I would have Verlander on there yet, to be honest with you. He's still going to be pitching. Same with Scherzer. No, Scherzer should be on there. Sorry. Scherzer's too good. But then again, we don't have Jacob deGrom on there. And honestly, Jacob deGrom is a better pitcher than Max Scherzer is. But he's always hurt.
And that's the thing for me with deGrom, same with Mike Trout. When he pitches, he's dominant, but he hasn't pitched a full season enough. So, yeah.
Okay, but the one thing we can talk about here is let's go back to the Detroit Tigers about a decade ago, and they had Verlander, Scherzer, and Cabrera all at the same time. How that team didn't become a dynasty, I'll never know.
Yeah, isn't that the honest truth? That was absolutely an insane team. And yeah, it's kind of like the Atlanta Braves in the 90s. They only got one title out of all of that talent. And they should have had at least two, potentially more than that. They would never have had 98. That 98 Yankees team I would take against almost any team in the history of baseball. But the Braves should have had 96. They probably shouldn't have even or 97. Well, yeah, 96 and 97. They shouldn't have let the Marlins beat them in 97 either. But anyway, we're not talking about that right now. What do you guys think about Barry Bonds in the top 10?
I don't like it. I think the fact that Griffey's 13 and Barry, who is from some standpoints questionable, and some standpoints probably on this list. But the fact that he's above Griffey is ridiculous to me. Griffey's a Hall of Famer, no question of any integrity issues on his part. I mean, the fact that Bonds was so high is ridiculous to me.
It was. Our dad makes a good point, though. Before the steroids, Barry Bonds very well was a top 10 player. Let's remember the list of 40-40 players is not big, and he went 40-40. The thing that drives me nuts about Barry Bonds is that he didn't need to do the steroids at all. Just like A-Rod didn't need to do steroids to be successful. But why would you do that? Why would you shoot yourself in the foot like that? It drives me nuts.
I know this was kind of our thing last week since we were talking Hall of Fame. I don't have a problem with Barry Bonds being in the top 10. He is the all-time home run leader. And the thing with steroids don't make you hit the ball. Steroids don't improve your hand-eye coordination. Barry Bonds was still a dominant player. And I think he absolutely deserves and belongs in the top 10 here because of that. And I also think he should be in the Hall of Fame with that. The person that I potentially would have taken out of the top 10, it's tough. I'm looking at it's hard for me to go against Dan Musial. Potentially, I might take out Walter Johnson. I might switch with Ken Griffey. Even potentially Mickey Mantle. I think you have 1, 2, 3 of the all-time Yankee greats in the top 10. I mean, they certainly have the stats, I think, to do it, but I don't know. Griffey has to be in there somewhere, and I don't know that I would take Bonds out for Griffey, though.
Matt Ocker said, yeah, he was good before roids, total legend. Rich, again, Griffey unimpeachably top 10. And another good point is that Barry Bonds is the Lance Armstrong of baseball. He didn't have the titles, but I understand what you're getting at. Although I guess we don't have anybody who would potentially have lost a lot of titles because, again, it's a team game, not an individual sport. And yeah, Matt, that's exactly what I said earlier. It's a shame he had to go that route. He definitely did need to. He had the talent. I think of the top 10, I think I would probably take out either Mantle or I would probably take out Stan Musial to put Griffey into the top 10 if it were me. And that's it really is tough. I don't think I'd knock Walter Johnson out. I think you need to have at least one pitcher in the top 10 because that's just as important of the game as the hitting portion of the game is. So I can't take him out. Although that said, I love Pedro Martinez. I loved watching him pitch. I actually think Pedro might be a little bit high. I feel like Satchel Paige is too low. Now, would I do a straight swap of them? I don't know necessarily. Also, Warren Spahn, the most winning left-handed pitcher of all time at 47. Another one I just really – and again, I'm glad you didn't tell me to sit down and write out the top 100 players of all time because to make an unbiased list is incredibly difficult. Because let's face it, we would all stack it with our favorite players or players from our favorite teams, the players we got to watch the most, which is, again, why I wish they would have done this based on era instead of just a flat 100 all time, because it's an impossible thing to do accurately, I think.
Andrew, Austin Riley is not top 100.
Wouldn't even consider it yet. Don't worry. I'm not that crazy. Although, yes.
So I do have a thought here. So we were talking about Walter Johnson. Is he like I'm not too familiar with Walter Johnson. Is he considered the best pitcher to have ever played the game? Because if you want a pitcher in the top 10, is Walter Johnson the right choice?
All right, Jason. So you ready for the stats? He is a career 417 and 279. That's a 164.8 WAR, a 217 career ERA. Pitched almost 6,000 innings, struck out 3,500 batters, had a WHIP of 1.061. He had a ton of seasons of ERAs in the ones, and I believe he is the all-time leader in career shutouts with 110. So yeah, I'm okay keeping him there, honestly. That's ridiculous. I mean, I know it's the dead ball era, but that's still a ridiculous level of domination.
Yeah, and I mean, and the reason for my question is we don't really hear him as being considered the top pitcher of all time. You know, we hear top pitcher and we go immediately to Cy Young, or Pedro Martinez and Greg Maddux and what have you. So I just found it interesting that a name that people usually aren't that familiar with ended up being the top pitcher.
And again, I think that's recency bias. We know Maddux, we know Martinez, we've watched them pitch. Walter Johnson pitched from 1907 to 1927. And he spent his entire career with the Washington Senators. You know, team doesn't exist. Long before the time of television, so there's not even old, grainy black and white clips that you can barely see the form of the players on the field in the Hall of Fame to look at. You know, you're looking at still shots from newspapers and his stats, which is probably why he doesn't have the recognition that even if he would have pitched 20, 30 years later, he would have had. All right, guys. Anything else from any of you for the top 100? It's a good list. It's a good exercise. It gets us talking. Is it the best list that could have been made? Probably not. But again, that's, like I said, impossible task. All right. So, yes, Dad. We would probably just argue about the definition of the eras as well. Absolutely. All right. So let's move into the NL Central, which is what we were theoretically supposed to talk about for most of the time tonight. And we're going to, as we've been doing, we'll go backwards to forwards by placement. And leading off in the fifth place spot in the NL Central last year was the Pittsburgh Pirates with a fantastic record of 61 and 101. Looking at the depth chart, you've got Roberto Perez catching, and defensively, the guy's an absolute stud. I'm glad he got the Golden Glove last year. Michael Chavis at first, O'Neill Cruz at second, Bryant Hayes at third, Kevin Newman at short. Outfield, you got Yoshi Susugo, Brian Reynolds, Ben Gemmel. Pitching, you've got Will Crow, Mitch Keller, Max Kranick, and then two new pickups, Jose Quintana and Zach Thompson, and David Bednar is the closer. So in the list of where do the Pirates need to improve, I'm going to say almost everywhere. Jason, you looked like you were about to say that. Did I take the words right out of your mouth?
Yeah, I mean, it's, and we see the same thing with the teams that we've seen in the bottom of each of the division that we've gone over so far, is the bottom teams. There's so many holes and gaps that need filled here. Looking through who they have some solid youth in there. You know, Brian Hayes is going to be a stud, I think. Michael Chavis, I know people are high on him. O'Neill Cruz, and I do like Brian Reynolds. There's starting pitching isn't awful. It's not great, but I've seen worse rotations. Their relieving core isn't that great. But looking at their prospects, I mean, finishing almost dead last in the entire league, you're going to get good prospects at some point. But they have two, potentially 3 or 4 players, depending on how development happens, that will be coming up this year. You're going to be looking at Nick Gonzalez coming up, most likely at some point this year. He's a second baseman. O'Neill Cruz, shortstop. And then a year away, you're looking at Quinn Priester and Leover Peguero. Peguero, I know a lot of people are high on him. And a lot of these prospects, the value on them comes from me looking at their trading cards, their baseball cards. And people are very high on Peguero, Gonzalez. And their top prospect is actually the one that they just recently drafted, Henry Davis, catching prospect. He's going to be a couple seasons away, but people are very high on him too. So they're going to be a few seasons away. I think this year we're going to be looking at, they had 61 wins last year. I'm going to keep them right around the same. Maybe I'm going to drop them a little bit. I'm going to drop them down to 59 wins, I think, just because they need too much.
What do you think, Joe?
Well, first thing I want to know is, can they find a guy who can make a force out at first base without getting goaded into a rundown? Because that's obviously very important for the Pirates going forward. But like Jason said, with most of these teams, they've got some things, some pieces down on the farm. But their Gold Glove catcher Stallings is the one who got traded. So the catcher they have now is not the Gold Glove winner. But the fact that they bring players like that up and then they go and trade them, I've never understood that about them. I think your dad's spot on. I think the Pirates are just not committed. It's similar to the Orioles. They bring up talent. They have talent that's really good, and then they trade it away. They have a fire sale in July, and they don't really improve anything. I think Quintana is a solid, solid piece for them as a starting pitcher. I know he's older, but that experience can certainly help. They just need too much. So I would say they're probably going to be right around where they are. I think they're either going to have 100 losses or 99, somewhere in there. So it'd be about the same, 61, 62.
All right. And Matt Ocker said anyone worth a crap they're going to trade off, afraid to win perhaps. And yeah, again, nailed it on the head. Alex, what do you think, bud?
I think you were generous when you started this out by saying, the Pirates, the team that ended last season, they always end last unless they have a team of players who have no value elsewhere but play well with them, right? And I think that's the Pirates as a whole. They easily have a front office who's smart. They invest well in their farm system. They draft well. They grow players, but they're not willing to keep them long enough so that they have enough of them to be successful. And until I see that they're going to change and do that consistently, they're always going to be last. So in some sense, their team is going to be fine next year. They're going to play spoiler here and there, win a couple series, but overall, they're going to continue to be the team that allows other mediocre teams in the division to be successful because they're there. That's what the Pirates are.
They at least have PNC Park, which is absolutely stunning.
Great ballpark.
Yeah, I think it's on my bucket list to see where all the teams play, and I've been to about half so far, and PNC is top of my list right now. I've been to Fenway, Yankee Stadium, Wrigley. PNC is just absolutely gorgeous.
And I think the thing there is the city of Pittsburgh wants the Pirates to be successful. It's not like Tampa Bay where they don't have a good fan base in their home city. Pittsburgh wants them to be successful. They're just not consistently.
No, that's so true. And bringing up the point that Rich is bringing up right now with the Pirates and the Orioles and their amazing ballparks, something we were talking about off air. We thought that Tampa Bay should be allowed to take one of these beautiful ballparks and play in it as their home stadium until one of these two teams gets better, and then they can send Tampa back down to the dump known as Tropicana Field. Maybe that would be a good way to stop tanking. You don't get to play in your beautiful ballpark unless you bring out a team that is worthy of that beautiful ballpark.
Guess he'll be playing somewhere else for quite a while then.
Alex, what are you thinking win total?
I have a soft spot for the Pirates. They're the only team in my team's division that I like. So I'm going to go with 66. I'm going to go with it. I think they can hit it.
All right. So here's the thing. The Reds are going to be rebuilding next year too. So I think the Pirates may be able to sneak a couple more of those mediocre wins than they otherwise would have, but not that many. So I think I'm going to put them right about either 62 or 63 wins. They're going to be hovering right around that 100 loss point regardless. I don't think they're going to pull a Diamondbacks and drop all the way down to the 110 loss mark, or the Orioles at the 110 loss mark. It looks like Matt's with us at 66. All right, guys, anything else on the Pirates before we move on to what is undoubtedly going to be the longest or second longest portion that we talk about tonight? All right, let's do it. It is Cubbies time. The Cubbies last year were looking great until they fell apart in June and ended up at 71-91, fourth in the NL Central. They still have some good talent on the roster. They've got Wilson Contreras. They picked up Yan Gomes. They've got Frank the Tank at the Schwindy City Schwindel. They've got Nick Madrigal, Patrick Wisdom, Nico Horner when he can stay healthy. They still have Bodie and Alcantara at utility. You've got Ian Happ, Rafael Ortega, Jason Hayward when he is healthy and somewhat productive, as well as Clint Frazier from the Yankees. They picked up Marcus Stroman. They still have Hendricks. They've got Wade Miley, which was a brilliant waiver pickup, honestly. And Adalbert Alzolay. And now that Alzolay won't be trying to be the staff ace or a 2-3, it should be a good development year for him, I'm thinking. They still have Rowan Wick at closer, so if they're doing well, I fully expect to see the Cubs try and get an actual closer because Wick was a little up and down towards the end of the year last year. Joe, I'll let you start this off. It's your team, bud. What are you thinking?
Well, you've hit a lot of good points here. I think what'll be really interesting to see is what the Cubs decide to do with Wilson if they decide to get a contract done. Why they haven't done it yet, similar to your Braves and Freddie. I don't know why that hasn't been dealt with yet. But the Cubs did everything they could to trade away the other three of the big four. So you might as well sign one of them back. So I think Gomes is a solid pickup for him, especially with Contreras being up and down with some injuries here and there last year. So I think that'll be a good backup for him. I'm on the Frank the Tank train. I love Frank Schwindel. I do think he's going to have a drop off a little bit playing. He played 51 games last year. So playing the full season, obviously he's not going to be able to maintain, 370 or whatever it was for the full season, obviously. But I think he could be solid for them. Nico's a big question mark. I think, when healthy is becoming more prevalent, and he's only played maybe half a year or, a year and a half. So when that's already in the question already, and you've got guys like Correa on the market, you've got some of these other shortstop guys on the market. I have a feeling they're going to go after one of those guys and kind of lock that up a little bit. Be interesting to see what they do first base wise besides Frank Schwindy City Swindell. I'm getting to that. Rich. One of the Cubs writers who's really well ingrained with the team, one of the beat writers, he's thinking they're gonna maybe make a play for Rizzo, maybe a 2-3 year deal or 2 years with an option. Rizzo will be 33 in August. What point of the season is that? We'll find out, but he'll be 33 in August, and the Cubs have a lot of short-term money freed up, so they could make a couple of big short-term deals. I do think they're not, blowing the entire ship up. So I think, getting Pete Crow Armstrong with the trade with the Mets, getting Candelario from the Yankees, or the Giants. I forget which deal that was in, but the amount of haul that they got back on all of the trades last year, picking up Stroman. Stroman has been phenomenal on social media with his move to the Cubs, and he's really latching on to Cub fans already. He's already offering tickets to fans on Twitter, for his first start, second start, all that stuff. So he's really bought in to being there. They have a lot of pieces. Again, Nico when healthy. So do they go after Rizzo and bring Rizzo back? Do they go after Correa and lock up Short for the foreseeable future? Bodie and Wisdom would basically go between third and second, I guess. Magical, we haven't seen him yet, but I know he was really good with the White Sox before they traded for him. So I'm optimistic going after Wade Miley and picking him up of waivers after being interested in him at the trade deadline and then kind of blowing it off, playing the cat and mouse game and then picking him up off waivers was a brilliant move by Jed Hoyer. I don't say that a lot about Jed Hoyer, but that was brilliant. Pretend you're interested and then say, I'm not ready to make a move yet, and then pick him up for nothing. It's brilliant. So I think they've got some pieces. I'm more than happy to see Zach Davies go. There's that meme floating around where it's Mayhem from the Allstate commercials, and it says, "I'm Zach Davies, and it's the first inning." So, to me, I'm more than happy to see him leave. I'm interested to really see what this team can do.
Absolutely. You make a lot of excellent points there, Joe. And something I said and Jason said at the trade deadline last year, you guys, by burning everybody and getting rid of everybody expiring, brought in a tremendous prospect haul back, and the rebuild will not take nearly as long as it would have otherwise. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just enjoying just sitting back here, just letting Joe take complete control of this one. So the Cubs are not going to be a bad team. I do like Nick Madrigal. I think if Nico can stay healthy, which who knows how big of an if that is at this point, he can be solid. Marcus Stroman and Wade Miley were big acquisitions for that team. Their starting pitching staff is really solid. I'd say that's probably their strength right now is their starting pitching. Their relief core is okay, not great. But looking at their prospects, they got Pete Crow Armstrong in that trade, which was a good get for them, and their top pick, which is Brennan Davis. He may be up this year, and he's an outfielder, which is going to be solid for the Cubs. I know they're high on Christian Hernandez, the player that I am excited about, and he's all the way down in he's their 7th ranked prospect, shortstop Ed Howard. I think that kid's going to be really good. His ETA is 2024, so he is a couple seasons away. And then Christian Hernandez, who is also listed as shortstop, they might look at switching somebody over to second here. He's in 2025. Cubs have a promising future as long as they don't trade them away, which I don't think they will. The Cubs do like to use their own in-house talent. So I think we're going to see the Cubbies. I think their starting staff is going to get them some wins here. I'll go up to about 75 wins for the Cubs. I see Rich says that he has a soft spot for Ross. Is he the right guy for the job? I have my opinions on this. I feel like I want to throw this one back over to Joe and even to Alex. My initial thought is no, but I'm going to let Joe just go on his tangent here.
Do it,
Alex,
Joey.
go first.
Okay, so specifically on David Ross, I think you can see David Ross's influence considering one of our top 10 prospects is a catcher who's supposed to arrive in 2022. We just signed Yan Gomes, and we have Wilson Contreras, a top 5, top 10 catcher in baseball, right? There is no reason that we need to be investing that amount in that position. And while I know that maybe that's taking a stretch for David Ross's influence over the personnel on the roster, I love David Ross. David Ross maybe was the single most important clubhouse piece to us winning the World Series in 2016. He was hugely important. He's not the right job. He's not the right guy for the job. I love the dude, but he's not. He's not. But Joe, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Tune back to any point in June going forward, and you'll hear my thoughts on this one. I mean, I will agree with you. You know, having him around for that World Series run was huge. Part of the reason I think they have to invest in catchers is because they got some guy off the Weiss shopping cart bagging line by August last year. So they have to have a couple of good pieces in there. A catcher, but they just had to. Definitely not the right guy for the job. He's too much of a clubhouse guy. I think he's too quick to pull plugs on pitchers. As I've said plenty throughout the last year. Definitely not the right guy for the job. They're gonna obviously let him get through this year, but I don't know who they go to next, but it's for the love of God, it better not be Dave Ross again.
But here's what I will say. I do think that considering, look, Theo knew 2.5 years ago what was going to happen last year, right? Like it was obvious that we were never going to re-sign Chris Bryant, who had the potential to be the greatest Cub of all time. There was no reason we should have traded him, but we did, and that's fine. They knew what was going to happen. And when you know what's going to happen, I'm okay with them having David Ross for that couple of years, but he's not going to win us the next World Series.
Well, he's for sure not going to win the next World Series. I have no issue with them letting him go. I'm not on the KB train after 17 and 18. He just didn't seem to really bring his A game every day. I have my own feelings about Javi, but that's Javi, as the guys will tell you, is somebody I'm more than happy to let Detroit pay $200 million to watch him strike out 200 times.
I love Javi. Javi is one of my favorite Cub players of all time. Their trading him was the best move we ever did, and I'm so glad we didn't bite the bullet and re-sign him.
So I have a theory. It'll be like a conspiracy theory, but Ross is going to try and get all of those catchers traded so he can be a player manager. Take his walker with the skis or tennis balls, sit on the chair behind home plate.
And they're going to get Lester to come back too, aren't they?
Why not? Hey, what? Jake Arrieta, bring Jake the Snake back. I mean, he's finally not in Philly, so.
Arrieta, really? You really want to get me going? Is that what you're trying to do here?
Is Bartman getting his tickets back yet?
No.
Oh, man.
No, definitely not.
But for real, for the Cubs for next season, so the only reason we signed Yan Gomes, who is for a lot of teams a starting level catcher, he's not incredible. He's not going to ever make or break things, but he's a solid catcher. I I like the deal we got him at. I'm glad we got him. I feel like our front office is not, other than the starting rotation, love Marcus Stroman, love Wade Miley, focused there. But as far as field players go, I just feel like we're not focused in a lot of ways with who we're going after. Okay, so Ian Happ is the most frustrating player, and he has been for me for half a decade or more. As a prospect, he was an incredible prospect, and I was so happy when he finally came to the majors, and he's disappointed me and built up my hope every single game that he's ever played in Major League Baseball. We need to get rid of Ian Happ. He's not worth it for us, even as a replacement level player. There are other players we could have at that place, and I think that's where I struggle with Jed Hoyer and whether or not he's even the right person in the front office. Is he just kind of the living out the last few years of what Epstein hoped would happen but isn't happening? Or does he actually have a voice of his own? Does he actually have something to say? And I think that's where we're going to be interesting to see. But I love the Marcus Stroman pickup for a lot of reasons. One, like you mentioned, Joe, he's embracing Chicago and the fan base. And if you can do that, you're going to find some success there. If he's not, it's not a long contract. Likely he's going to perform. We're going to be able to flip him this year or next year for prospects. So, the risk here is very low for me on that part with Stroman. Love the Wade Miley pickup, especially because it comes from the Reds, who I'm actually cautious about what they could do next year. So I'm glad we were able to take something away from their starting rotation there. Same thing with Nico Werner, though. Is he going to be healthy? Who knows? He's probably on the path to be the next Ian Happ for me, where he's going to be just the most disappointing prospect ever. But he still has that potential. And I think if we take the pressure off him by signing Correa or Story, move him to second base, or trade him, then keep Madrigal at second base. I mean, either way, but Hoerner is not going to be able to be this, I'm going to be the leader of the infield. That's not who he is. I think we've learned that. And I think if we can take the pressure off him, he'll be okay. But the Cubs are really good at the places that don't win you the World Series. We have great utility players, right? Like, we're so good with utility players. I love David Bodie. I think he's a great utility player. He's cheap. He's not more valuable to anybody else, so we don't have to pay him a lot, and he can play practically any position. Heck, he could probably pitch for us in a pinch if we really needed him to. But other than our investments in starting pitching, I don't think we're seriously investing in the areas that we weren't good at last year and the areas that are going to win us games this year. Honestly, as much as I'm a Cubs fan, I'm going to be surprised if we win more than 73 games. That's what I'm going to put us at, 73, and that's reaching for me, honestly.
So you guys, with your complaints towards the front office, are you hoping the Blackhawks will hire Greenberg away from the Cubs and get him out of there?
I mean, I have less of a beef with. I think Jed Hoyer is a lot better now than he was pre-Theo. Pre-Theo, he was garbage. He wouldn't know a great deal from a hole in the ground, and now he, pulled off probably the best prospect haul of any trade deadline in the last couple of years. So I have less beef with Hoyer now than I did probably, 4 years ago. I think, Alex, you make a great point. We've really improved in starting pitching, and that was the biggest downfall for us, I think, last year. Obviously, the bullpen when you had, Tepera and Kimbrel. I mean, it was, and Andrew Chafin. It was lights out 7 through 9 for the month of May, but after that, whatever. Yeah, I don't have as much of a beef with Hoyer now as I did 4 or 5 years ago.
Fair enough.
I think the issue, though, with Hoyer, I love Jed Hoyer as a person. I do believe in him as a front office exec. To be honest, though, I think it takes someone like a Theo Epstein, who is a generational front office talent, right? Like, he broke the biggest curses in all of sports history. It takes someone of that caliber to be able to be successful when you have the Cubs owners right now. So I'm not going to put as much of it on Hoyer as I am on the Ricketts, but I don't think Hoyer is a person who's going to win us a World Series as the leader of our front office.
Boy, it's funny how bad ownership keeps coming back as a common theme for these teams that are not doing so well. It's just kind of funny, isn't it?
And look at that, and then you think back to what we're going through with the CBA right now, and you're like, well, here's a trend. Here's the common denominator. It's terrible ownership.
Funny how that works. So I'm going to put the Cubbies right around, I think I'm going to have them around 75 or 76 wins. I think they're going to be improved from last year. I think the Reds are going to be worse. I don't think they've got enough talent yet to push past the Cardinals and the Brewers. If they do what the Red Sox did this year and come to terms of being good again a year early, I could see them getting past the Cardinals and maybe pushing for the second wild card spot. But I think that would be, above and beyond anybody's wildest dreams in Chicago right now. I think 2 to 3 years is the more realistic timeline for them. Did you guys, Alex, you gave your win prediction. Joe, Jason, did you guys?
I didn't give mine. I'm gonna give them about 80. They're gonna be somewhere close to 500. I think they're gonna make a splash for somebody at short once things are back open. I think they're gonna pick up a closer or some other strong bullpen arm. They're gonna put the pieces in place to pull off, maybe not quite what the Red Sox did, but they're going to be close.
Yeah. Matt makes a great point. Bad ownership is way of life for the Pirates fans. Yeah. And then Rich, this might be one of the best comments of the night so far. There should be some sort of unspoken ethical code among the owners where they can scuttle idiots from owning teams. 100% agreement. There are a lot of bad owners that, yeah, exactly, Jason. The Orioles would love to get on board with that. Oh, man. Well, let's use that as our segue and move on to the Cincinnati Reds since we're going to bring up Marge Schott. All right, so the Reds last year did better than they've done in a couple years. Yes, they did make the playoffs back in the weird 2020 season with the oddly expanded teams that they then got knocked out very quickly by Atlanta because they showed they just, outside of pitching, the Reds teams could only hit home runs and couldn't play small ball. So the Reds last year, they won 83-79. That was good for third in the NL Central. And they were, let's keep in mind though, they were pushing for the wild card spot into September. So they should, that's impressive considering it's been 20, 30 years 40 years since the Reds have really been relevant as a postseason team. So looking at the depth chart, you've got Tyler Stevenson catching along with Aramis Garcia. You still have Joey Votto at first. And honestly, guys, he's kind of like an ageless wonder at this point because he just keeps mashing the older he gets. And also, even though he's currently a free agent, if they would bring back Castellanos, let's remember, do not hit Castellanos. Joey Votto turns into the Hulk and hits home runs. He did it to the Braves. He did it to the Phillies, and I'm sure he did it to a whole lot of other teams last year. Actually, if I remember right, he did it to the Braves twice in one game. Why they hit Castellanos twice, that was dumb. All right, you also have Jonathan India at second. I really like watching him play. He's a good second baseman. Eugenio Suarez at third. Kyle Farmer at short, and then that's still a very good outfield, even without Castellanos. You've got Jesse Winker, Tyler Naquin, Aristides Aquino. This is where they're going to fall apart a little bit. Their pitching staff needs serious help. You've got a rotation of Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, Tyler Mahle, Reaver San Martin, and Hunter Green. And the closer is Lucas Sims. Thank God it's not Amir Garrett anymore because he doesn't have it anymore unless he's ready to go 9 rounds to the entire Pittsburgh Pirates bench. Also, along with Garrett, you have
or Javi Baez.
Or Javi Baez, yeah. You also have Luis Cessa, Art Warren, and Dauri Morrieta. So, yeah, I actually – so the Nick Quintana pickup that they made in that trade with the Tigers for Tucker Barnhart, I think they actually came out of that trade honestly, they should have gotten another prospect because catching depth is so bad right now. But I like the Nick Quintana pickup for them. I think he's going to be a good piece for them for years to come. Jason, why don't you lead off since you've been sitting there so quietly for a while? Which never
Yeah,
happened.
well, I mean, I have to let the Cubby fans do their thing. So while they were doing their thing, I was looking at the Reds, and the more I look at the Reds, the more I like them. Tyler Stevenson is a young kid. He's going to be the catcher of the future for them. I think Tucker Barnhart, well, yeah, it was a good pickup, but I think Tyler Stevenson is going to be your franchise catcher. Jonathan India, reigning rookie of the year. Eugenio Suarez, another young guy. The outfield, I mean, Aquino's going to be solid. Jesse Winker, and yeah, they have Tyler Naquin, and I think Castellanos, losing him is going to hurt a little bit. But the thing that the Cubs have going, the Reds have going for them is their farm system with the outfield. Their number 4 prospect overall, Austin Hendrick, he's not due until about 2024, but he is going to be really good. I know they're high on him. And you talked about their pitching. I think you're going to see 2 young pitchers coming up for them this year, and it's their top 2 prospects, Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. So I think that they're going to end up being okay in the starting pitching. Now, I mean, them being rookies, having their first games, there's probably going to be some kind of a learning curve there. But I like the Reds. I don't think they're going to be in the top 2 in the division because the Brewers and Cardinals are that much better. But I think you're going to see a clear difference between the top 3 teams and the bottom 2 in this division. I like the Reds a lot with what they're doing, how they're improving. They keep going this way. I think you're looking in a year or so, they may be fighting for the division title. I'm going to take them this year. They were at 83 wins. I'm going to give them 86 or 87 wins, I think, this year.
Wow. Big jump. All right. Joe, what do you think?
I feel like they're going to probably – I think the Cubs and the Reds are going to fight for that 3rd spot at least most of the year, maybe into September. I think Sonny Gray and Castillo are obviously they're better starters. And after that, yeah, we've got some guys who could be good. I think based on what they currently have, I think they're going to be somewhere around 80 wins wise. Castellanos is a big loss for them, assuming they don't get him back. I would love nothing more than to see Correa and Castellanos at Wrigley, which could happen, I think. If they want to spend the money, it could happen.
Maybe when the Phillies visit town.
Wow. Maybe. They've got some, like Jason said, they've got some prospects coming up. I think that Miley and Castellanos are worth probably 4 or 5 wins at least. So I'm going to say somewhere around 80, 81.
All right. What do you think, Alex?
I'm high on the Reds. I really am. I think the front 3 of their starting rotation with Louis Castillo, Sonny Gray, and Tyler Mahle are – I think it's a strong front 3 for a team that's not, World Series bound, right? I think that's really good. I think that they have some strong prospects coming up, but I honestly think that they don't need them this year to do what they need to do, right? This year is all about giving a bunch of young people an idea of what it means to win games. And so that's people like Jonathan India, right? Like these people who are strong, young people who had a good season last year, the year before. It's teaching them that in the next year or 2, they're going to be able to win, that they know how to take it to that next level. But yeah, Tyler Stevenson, Jonathan India. I even think Eugenio Suarez. Like, I think they have a strong infield. I think the front three of their rotation is good. Their outfield, I think, could either be incredible or slightly above average. We'll see what happens there. Relief pitching, I think, is what's going to hurt them the most. I think their starters are going to have to go late in games, and I think that's why they're going to flame out around the All-Star game shortly after the All-Star game. But if they can find a way to get a late burst, I'm gonna go optimistic and put them at about 87 wins. I think they can do it if they go through.
Good thoughts, Alex. Good thoughts. All right, you guys have convinced me. I'll put them at that 87, 88 win plateau. And as we saw this past season, you can win the World Series with an 88 win regular season. Now, their top three starters aren't as good as Atlanta's. They don't have the depth to go deep. And they're not going to win the division because Milwaukee's got a stranglehold on the division. Their pitching is far superior to what every other team has right now. Although I agree with you guys. I like the Stroman pickup as well. But yeah. And Jason, you were right. I had actually meant to bring that up and forgot to put it back in my notes about Hunter Green and Nick Adallo. Those two guys so far have looked like absolute studs in the minors. And I don't think it's going to be very long until they come up. I think potentially you could see at least one of them up before the All-Star break, maybe both, depending on if players get injured. This is sports. Next man up is the mentality you have to have. All right, guys, anything else about the Cincinnati Reds? All right, let's move on to the Runnin' Redbirds, although they're not really the Runnin' Redbirds of the Whitey Herzog era anymore, unfortunately. Boy, that was exciting baseball to watch, though. If you ever get a chance to look up some of those old Herzog teams with Vince Coleman and Ozzie, do it. They are phenomenal teams to watch. Just a lot of fun, a lot of speed. All right, the Cardinals last year, coming off of that absolutely insane run in September, one of which we will probably never see again as long as we live. It was a once-in-a-generational kind of run. Ended up with a 90-72 record. That was good for second in the NL Central. They picked up the second NL wild card, basically coming out of nowhere to just grab it in a stranglehold and tell all the other teams, just go away, you're done. The Cardinals were eliminated by the Dodgers in the wild card game. Looking at the depth chart, Yadier Molina is coming back for one more season along with Adam Wainwright. I'm assuming this is probably going to be the last season for both of them, although honestly, if they both play well, who knows? Maybe they'll go on another short one-year deal next year as well. You got Goldschmidt at first. You got Tommy Edman at second, Nolan Arenado at third, Edmund Sosa at short, Paul DeJong is the play-everywhere utility man, outfield Tyler O'Neill, Harrison Bader, Dylan Carlson, and the rotation of Jack Flaherty when he's actually healthy, Adam Wainwright, who honestly, Wainwright looked like he was 10 years younger last year. He pitched so well when Flaherty went down. They also picked up Steven Matz, pissing off the Mets and the Mets fan base who thought Steven Matz was guaranteed to go to them. Miles Mikolas and Dakota Hudson. They've got Giovanni Gallegos as the closer, along with Alex Reyes, Genesis Cabrera, Cody Whitley, and they also picked up TJ McFarland. I think he's going to be a pretty good low-risk guy on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal as a left-handed arm in the bullpen. You can't argue with that. Jason, why don't you go ahead and lead off what you're thinking with the Cardinals?
You mean the 2022 NL Central champion St. Louis Cardinals? Yeah, I'm taking the Cards for this division, actually. I love this team. I think they're going to fight with the Brewers and eventually take it over. Looking at their depth chart here, very solid infield all around. Outfield is really good. Dylan Carlson, a young kid, he's going to be fantastic. Their starting pitching is solid. The relief pitching, kind of similar to what we were just talking about with the Reds, that can be kind of their downfall potentially. But again, I go back here and I look at who they potentially will have coming up this season. Nolan Gorman is their top prospect at second and third base. He's going to fill in nicely. And there's a a pitcher that I personally am super high on. I've been collecting his cards, just holding on to them for when he comes up. Matthew Liberatore or Liberatore. I don't know how you actually say his last name. But he was in the Rays system, came over to St. Louis. I believe that was through a trade. And I think he's going to be really good. And now this player is going to be a couple years away, but, depending on what happens with their depth and how his development goes, Jordan Walker is going to be an absolute beast when he gets the call up, whether it's this year or next year or 2024. I think that, getting Steven Matz was a good acquisition for them. Bringing Wainwright back is kind of high risk, high reward in that scenario. And they lost a few good players, losing Rodon. J Happ was okay for them. Lester, Carpenter, don't really care about the name Andrew Miller. But Jose Rodon, that's kind of a little bit of a loss there, but they kind of make up for with what they gained. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to take the St. Louis Cardinals as your division champs this coming season. And I'm going to, let's see, they were at 90 wins last year. I think with their acquisitions and with their depth, I'm going to take 96, 97 wins for the Cardinals.
All right, Joe, what do you think?
That's painful to hear, but I happen to agree, I think. There's not a whole lot to not like about this Cardinals team. I do think, Yachty for the farewell tour will be fun to watch for him. Goldschmidt has been rock solid for them at first. Edman was solid at second. Arenado, you have Arenado and you have righty heavy lineups. That's a solid person to have at third. Platinum Glove winner for what, 3 years now. I mean, there's not a whole lot to hate about this team, other than the fact that they're my arch rival. Bader is really sharp, really solid in center. O'Neill is solid. Carlson is solid. I liked Flaherty a lot last year before he got hurt, so I think he's going to be really good for them. I think Steven Matz is finally going to, with Toronto and with the Cardinals, Mets fans are going to see what they thought they would get out of him in Queens and didn't get out of him in Queens because ownership and management sucked. I mean, to put it mildly, ownership and management with the Mets was terrible with regards to managing Steven Matz, and I think Toronto and now the Cardinals will be the benefit of that mismanagement for sure. Gallegos, the closer, he was my adulting reliever of the week multiple times last year, so I expect that to continue. Again, there's just not a whole lot to not like about this team, even without some of the prospects that are coming up. So I'm going to go about 94, 95 wins, I think.
I looked it up, Joe. Arenado won his 5th straight Platinum Glove. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, yes, he is the all-time leader in Platinum Glove winners. Keep in mind the award has only been around since 2011. So that's why it's not Greg Maddux as the all-time winner in Platinum Glove awards, because let's face it, it would be either Willie Mays or Greg Maddux.
Had to get a Braves player in there
Just
somehow.
keep bringing the Braves back into it.
He played for the Cubs too, not just
the
the
NL
Braves.
East is next week.
It is, and it's going to be a brawl, I have a feeling. But no, keep in mind, dude, he won. I think he won equal numbers of Golden Gloves with both the Cubs and the Braves. I don't have the numbers to look at offhand for sure, but it's pretty close to an even split. The dude didn't have a logo on his cap going into Cooperstown. I mean, that says something. All right, Alex, what are you thinking about the Cardinals? I know they're also one of your favorite teams to hate.
I'm going to keep it short because if I talk about the Cardinals for too long, I'm going to literally just burst in flames here. But sadly, I have to agree with everyone else. I'm going to start off and I'm just going to say they're going to win the division. I'm going to put them at 97, but I think they have the potential to push 100 wins. I do. The Cardinals build a team the way that I think teams should be built, even if they're a little conservative at times. Right? So they went from Pujols to Goldschmidt to Arenado. Like, how do you go from that transition and not find continued success? But I do think that they have I think their pitching losses are kind of a big deal, and that's what worries me. And I think going from Rodon to J. Happ to Lester, even Carlos Martinez, who in recent years hasn't been, reached the levels we all thought he would early in his career, I'm worried about their pitching a little bit. But, you go back to Adam Wainwright. I remember, I think it was 2010. It was Wainwright and Chris Carpenter for the Cardinals, who knew who was going to win the Cy Young. And I thought Carpenter was the long-term bet, and I was wrong. So I think re-signing Wainwright is a great, great idea for them. I think that's incredible. They're a team that has some prospects coming up. They have some young people on the team, but one of these days, they're either going to have that next infusion like an Arenado, or they're going to drop off. So to me, I think this is their last hurrah if they want to win a World Series with this core of a team. And I honestly, they're probably top 5 in baseball for me, to be honest.
That 2010, talking about that, Alex, that just brings back just not fun memories right now.
I don't know. That 2010 Cardinals team was fucking fantastic, man.
That was the 5-game series where I think Game 5 was a 1-0 duel with Halladay for the Phillies, and that was also the Ryan Howard blowing out his Achilles on the final play of the series, career ender essentially for Ryan Howard. But yeah, you brought up the Cardinals in 2010. I immediately was thinking, fantastic.
the series that put the end to the Phillies dynasty, short-lived though it was. Guys, I agree. I think the Cardinals are definitely going to be better than the oh, shut up, Jason. I do think the Cardinals are going to be better than they were this year. I'm going to put them at about 94, 95, but I'm going to keep them second. I don't think they're going to pass the Brewers, and I'll get to why I think that when we get to the Brewers in a second. But I think they should be 1 or 2 in the wild card next year, and they will absolutely be, whether they're a division winner or a wild card team, they will absolutely be pushing in the NLDS, potentially even the NLCS. This is a good team, and Alex, I think you're right. They're at that perfect bubble of where the older players are starting to tail off and the younger players are starting to pick up. And unfortunately, as we've seen, catching depth across MLB right now sucks. So when Yachty's done, they're going to be really hurting both defensively at catcher and offensively. And I know Yachty's not what he used to be offensively. I understand that. He's still better than a ton of players that are everyday catchers for probably over half of the league right now.
One thing to keep an eye on, though, they have Ivan Herrera, catching prospect. I think he's the heir apparent to Yachty, and I really believe in him.
Yeah, that wouldn't honestly surprise me. And yeah, it looks like he's projected to be AAA this year, so that we may even see him come up at some point this year, depending on what happens with Yachty's old man knees. So yeah, we may even start to see the future this year. It wouldn't surprise me. All right, guys. Anything else for the sudden love fest that turned into the St. Louis Cardinals? All right, let's move on to the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers were the champions of the NL Central last year before getting knocked out by my Atlanta Braves in the NLDS. They had a 95-67 record, and they were first, like I said, in the Central. Here's what they have coming back. They've got Omar Narvaez, catching along with Pedro Severino, Rowdy Tellez at first, Colton Wong at second, Luis Urias at third, Willie Adames at short. Outfield there, they've got Christian Yelich, Lorenzo Cain, Hunter Renfroe, which I think was a good pickup from Boston. Their pitching is still, I think, the best in the division. Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta, Adrian Hauser, Eric Lauer. They still have Josh Hader, who can strike out every left-hander on the planet other than Freddie Freeman. And the rest of the bullpen's still very good with Devin Williams, Jake Cousins, Brent Suter, and Jandel Gustave. One thing that I think will hurt the Brewers, they didn't re-sign their backup catcher, Manny Pena. He was actually, I believe, Joe helped me with this. He was either number 2 or number 3 ranked catcher in the free agent list. He actually signed with Atlanta, which I thought was a great move for them. I don't know that Pedro Severino is going to be as effective as a backup for them behind Narvaez. But, guys, I will say this. I still think the Brewers are going to win the division because pitching is what wins you championships. They've got better pitching than the Cardinals do. And I think that's going to take the regular season. I'm thinking 95 to 97 wins for them. Where I think they're going to fall apart is exactly where we saw it in the NLDS. They don't have enough bats to get opportune hitting when they need it. Alex, you haven't started all night. Why don't you go first for this one?
I think that the Brewers are going to pull the ultimate Milwaukee Brewers card where they have a really good year and they have so much potential and they never live up to it. It's what they do about 2, maybe 3 times a decade for the past 15, 20 years. It's what they do. It's who they are. And I think their pitching is where it's truly going to be at. Is Corbin Burns an ace? Sure, absolutely. Is Josh Hader one of the best closers in baseball? Sure. But they have an outfield with Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain and Hunter Renfroe, who I think are all going to be overrated. Solid outfield, nothing against them. They're still going to win plus 90 games, but overrated, not going to win a World Series. And I think their infield has some solid pieces to it, but overall, I think that they were saved by pitching last season. I think that's what really elevated them. And I think that that's going to fall enough that it's going to put them at a win total of probably 92 to 94 because, again, it's what the Brewers do. They're the Brewers.
All fair points. Joe, go ahead.
Well, since you brought up lefties who can't strike out Freddie Freeman, I'd like to bring up a lefty who did strike out Freddie Freeman this year.
Rizzo?
Anthony Rizzo. Hopefully back in a Cub uniform. We'll see.
The funniest strikeout of the 2021 season by far, and the fact that both Freddie and Rizzo were cracking up so hard after it happened was just so wonderful to watch, honestly.
Yeah, that was certainly fun. I think the Brewers are going to brewer. I think Alex is right on this one. I think the middle infield for them is the best part of their infield. They're not going to more than likely get Escobar back. Catching Pina, I think, was 2 or 3 in the free agent class, and we've talked enough about how bad the catching depth was this year. So 2 or 3 in catching is not necessarily a good thing long term. We'll see. Could be. But I think Renfroe is probably the best defensively of that outfield. I think Cain has gotten old enough that he's not going to be the best defender in that outfield for them. And you can have a great closer. You could even have 2 great bullpen arms. And, as we saw with some teams this year, having the best closer and then not using him, or using him, it doesn't work. So, Hader went in the 8th inning in that game with the Braves, and he's not an 8-inning guy. He's just not. So can Hader be more than just a 1-inning pitcher? The jury is still out on that, but right now I would say no. So the rest of that bullpen doesn't scare me. Whether I'm in the division and I see you 18 games a year, or if I see you 3 games a year. That bullpen doesn't scare me other than Josh Hader, and all I have to do is have the lead, and I won't see Josh Hader. So, I'm not too particularly scared of the bullpen. Burns is definitely an ace, and Woodruff is pretty good. Peralta is pretty good, but I see the drop off happening. I think somewhere around 90, 92. I think this is going to be the Cardinals division for at least a year, maybe 2, and then we'll see what happens with the Reds and the Cubs. So,
all right, fair enough. Jason.
Yeah, so pitching does help you win championships, but good pitching doesn't mean anything if you can't get the run support for your pitchers. And we talk about, like, over the course of these seasons, pitchers getting DeGrommed, where their starting pitcher goes 6 or 7 innings, gives up 1 run, but takes the loss, because they, like, the offense just doesn't get anything. And looking at this Brewers club, they have great starting pitching. They have that closer, but Joe, you make a good point. If you're not getting the run support from this lineup, you're looking at a bullpen that gives up a lead or something like that later in the game, to the point that Hader becomes ineffective. I'm looking at this lineup, and it just doesn't strike fear to me, the way that other lineups do. Who knows what Severino's going to be, or Navarez. Rowdy Tellez has potential. Colton Wong, I think, is starting to be on the downswing. Luis Urias, I think he can be solid, and same with Willie there. But Lorenzo Cain has potential. Christian Yelich, I don't know which Yelich we're going to get. So there's just a lot of ups and downs there. So I don't see the Brewers winning this division. I think the starting pitching and the relief pitching will be enough to help them get potentially a wild card spot. I think you're potentially going to be looking at a team from the NL East and the NL West getting the 2 wild card spots here. But I think I will take the Brewers down to, I'm going to say 90 wins, maybe even 89 wins here. Just because I see them in a lot of close, low-scoring games, and that's just going to be a toss-up.
You do make a lot of good points there, Jason. I will say I have actually got to watch some of Milwaukee's up-and-coming talent last year when I was down in Tennessee when I went to the Sounds game. The Sounds are the AAA affiliate of the Brewers. I got to watch Bryce Terang play, and he's a middle infielder, shortstop, second baseman. He is very, very smooth in the field when he's fielding, and he's got a very smooth-looking swing. I don't know that I would necessarily say he's going to pound the crap out of every single ball he hits, but every time he hit, it was good, solid contact, and he's also very, very fast. I mean, it was evident watching him run the field and play. So, honestly, I could see him potentially being called up at some point this year, ready to play for them. Ethan Small, talking to some of the other people at the game, I didn't get to watch him pitch, unfortunately, but from some of the fans that were there that see them regularly, they're really excited with how well he's pitched. Aaron Ashby should be coming up soon as well. Andy Ashby's son. The Brewers, it's not the deepest. It's definitely not the deepest farm system. Absolutely, no doubt about it. And you don't see that often with the top teams because, of course, that talent is all up in the major leagues. But the Brewers do have some guys that are ready to step up, I think, if needed this season or even next season. I just don't see it because in the regular season, because it's that long marathon, not always having that timely hitting doesn't hurt you as bad as it does in the postseason. I mean, look at the series with Atlanta. Atlanta could have swept that series if it wasn't for one bad pitch by Charlie Morton. And the Braves showed that when the pitching is even, that's where you really need the timely hitting. And I do agree, guys. Their lineup, as far as the bats go, it doesn't scare me like potentially the Reds, potentially the Cardinals does. But I think their pitching is good enough to overcome it. That's where I'm at. And like I said, I'm going to stick with 95, 97 wins next year. And I still think they're going to stay ahead of the Cardinals.
One other player to keep a lookout for is going to be their top prospect overall, Garrett Mitchell. He's an outfielder, and he should be up at some point this year, especially if you have any of those outfielders go down due to injury. Prepare for Garrett Mitchell. I think he's going to be really good. Couples years away, Sal Frelick and even Tyler Black, second baseman. They have some good prospects. It's not a lot of them are ready yet, though. So, I mean, like you said, Bryce Terang and Aaron Ashby, they'll probably be up. And I think the other one that will be up at some point this year is going to be Garrett Mitchell.
Jason, correct me if I'm wrong. Garrett Mitchell's the guy with the crazy fast burner speed, right?
I believe so.
He's down in Biloxi still?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if he gets up, watch out because Atlanta brought up Justin Dean for part of the postseason last year as a guy to have on the bench to pinch run in that in that critical moment where you need a guy with burner wheels in the bags to steal a run. Even if he's not ready to be a full-time player in the majors this year, I could absolutely see Milwaukee bringing him up in the postseason, kind of like Atlanta did with Dean, just to have that speed on, for a pinch run situation, or even in the outfield, depending on where they're at. If you're at one of those fields where you've got that massive center field, sometimes it's good to have a guy whose glove's not necessarily as good, but has the wheels to get to the ball better. As you and I have experience with playing MLB The Show and playing games in the Polo Grounds where we scrap the best defensive guy and put the fastest guy out there because of how deep it is.
Something that I was reading up on with Garrett Mitchell that it's really impressive. Two things. He was projected to be like a top 6 prospect, and he fell to the Brewers all the way at 20. So that's potentially a big steal for them. And this blows me away. He's actually been playing with type 1 diabetes since 3rd grade. Wow. So the fact that he's been able to manage that for so long and stay competitive and still just really take control of that disease is fantastic, and more power to him. I'm definitely pulling for this kid.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. If I remember right, Adam Duvall is also a type 1 diabetic. I believe he actually has a pump that, obviously he keeps in his back pocket in the outfield. I love seeing the success stories like that because, like I said, I work in healthcare, so I see so many diabetics where it's not a success story that I love seeing the converse of that. I hope for young players out there that have diabetes, they can look up to guys like Duvall, and that they can look up to guys like Mitchell, and use that as motivation. All right, guys. Anything else for the Brewers?
So I have one question though. I want to hear from everyone so I think that if there's a shortened season of about 100 games or so, maybe a little less, I think the Reds have the opportunity to get second in the division over the Brewers. But if there's a shortened season because of the lockout, do you guys think there would be any switches in how the order you put people?
I think I would probably switch the Brewers and the Reds, or the Brewers and the Cubs if the Cubs have assuming the Cubs assuming the Cubs get Correa or somebody at short more reliable than Nico is, unfortunately. because I was really pulling for him. I really thought he could be fun to watch, but it's when healthy is already in the picture, and he's only 20, 21. So if the Cubs get Castellanos and Correa, then maybe they're fighting for that 2 spot magically, but in a short season. But I could see the Reds switch places with the Brewers for sure.
I'll take that, and I'll go a step further. If it's a shortened season, like 100 games or less, the Reds are going to be your division champs. I think they have the talent and the full roster to do it. I think that's where you're going to see the pitching step up for the Reds, and that's where you're going to see the Cardinals maybe falter. And then again, shortened season doesn't give a lot of time, especially with having minimal or no spring training. What are the bats going to be like for the Brew Crew? So I'll go out on a limb and say shortened season means the Reds are your division champs.
I'm not willing to put the Reds in at champs in a shortened season because shortened season pitching is everything. In a shortened season, though, I could see the Reds jumping the Cardinals. I could see them sneaking up into 2 or grabbing that second wild card, even as the number 3 team in the division. Although I think in a shortened season, I think it's a stretch to say that the NL Central is going to take 3 spots in the playoffs. I actually no, scrap that. That's not going to happen because either the Dodgers or the Giants or the Phillies or the Braves are going to take one of those wild cards if they don't get the division. So you're not going to see 3 teams out of the Central.
You're going to get 1 team out of the Central, and it's going to be the division champ. I mean, the NL West is too good. The NL East is too much of a knockdown, drag-out fight for there to be 2 teams in the playoffs from the Central. It's just not going to happen.
I could see 2 in the Central.
The days of 2 and 3 teams getting in from the Central are behind them for at least a year or 2 more.
I mean, we forget, while the Phillies, Mets, and Braves get to beat up on the Nationals and Marlins, the NL Central gets to beat up on the Pirates and, sorry guys, the Cubs. So
it's true.
It's not. No, the Cubs got this. Come on now.
Alex, I love that optimism of yours.
We got Patrick Wisdom and Frank the Tank. I think we're okay.
I will never not love Schwindel. He had by far the best nicknames of anybody in baseball last year. And I think I did a good, the debate is it Frank the Tank or Schwindy City? I like what I did. Frank the Tank of the Schwindy City. Get everything all together because honestly, he's a stud, man. I hope he is a long-term player in Chicago because not only is he a good player, the fans love him and he loves being out there. That's just awesome. But going back to the playoffs, guys, 3 teams out of the Central, no. I could see 2 teams though. We saw it this past year, and honestly, our preseason predictions, which were wildly wild as expected, we thought the NL Central was going to be an utter dumpster fire last year outside of the top team. When it actually turned out that it was the AL Central that was the other utter dumpster fire, except for the top team. Go ahead, Joe. I
mean, we knew the AL Central was bad outside of the White Sox. I mean, an alien could have come down from Mars, not seen a lick of baseball, and go, the White Sox are going to win this division. Yeah, I mean, the people who picked Final Four teams based on team uniforms and mascots could have picked the White Sox to win this division. So, the White Sox were going to run away with that division. We knew that. I think, I don't think anybody expected the Cardinals to come out of nowhere and win 20 in a row. So to say we expected more than 1 team out of the NL Central going into the season is nonsense because up until September, we didn't expect that to happen.
And even into September, it didn't look like it was going to happen because the Cardinals didn't start that run until the second week of September through the end of the year.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Any other random thoughts for what has been a phenomenal evening talking about the baseball season we hope to see coming up very soon, with the owners and the players who get their heads out of their asses and just hammer this damn thing out?
I don't expect it to happen sooner rather than later. I think we're going to be looking at May, June, start of the season, I think, if we're lucky. In the meantime, I like what a lot of people have said on Facebook and Twitter is, if we're not going to have pro games, put the damn college games on. That'll be fun to watch. At least it would give us some baseball. I think, they're losing a ton of goodwill and a ton of casual fan base by doing this stupid crap. Just get it done. Get the damn deal done.
Yeah, please don't repeat the 94 season. It took baseball so many years to recover from 94. And let's face it took some chemical assistance to get there to make it happen. We don't want to.
It took looking the other way for 5 years and them going, oh my gosh, we have steroids in the game. We have to do something.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. All right.
Jason,
I don't think anybody needed the Mitchell report to
Sorry,
know
Joe, go ahead.
steroids in baseball. We didn't need the Mitchell report to know we had steroids.
Yeah, the idea if it looks like a duck. Yeah. Yeah, the idea if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Very much plays accurate to the idea of steroids in baseball. Jason,
That's
Alex, anything else from you guys? All right, guys. You can find all the audio recordings on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Amazon Music, and Spreaker. You can see us live on our YouTube channel, Facebook Live, and on Twitter. You can find our merchandise at www.redbubble.com/people/DDAB-podcast. Follow us on the Facebook page, facebook.com/DollarDogsAndBeer, on the Twitter page at DDAB_podcast. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at PyroLord314. Joe is at JoltonJoe35. Jason does not yet have his new handle because SurveyMonkey is kind of being a royal pain in the neck right now. So if I can't get the full results of the survey, we may do a quick Google survey because that's frankly what I should have done anyway. And Alex, I would love to promote you on social media, but my brother is completely dark on social media. You won't find him hardly anywhere. We are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast LLC, and we are sponsored by the wonderful, amazing Whiskey and Blade Barbershop in Lidditz. May your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next week for the NL East.